Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, one and all. Welcome. I'm very excited to do another one of these hangouts. I had a great time with you guys. God, was that almost 6 months ago now? I feel like it was almost 6 months ago that I did the last one of these. Anyway, I'm stoked, guys. KeyForge has been so much fun lately. I especially have had a really good time lately because I've been kind of taking a step back from the more competitive end of KeyForge and just kind of playing fun stuff, just like whatever I felt like. And that's been really good for me, I think. Because I think I get too much into the competitive headspace and it starts messing with me, you know? There's a little too much of that sometimes. Anyway, I'm looking forward to doing another live stream hangout. You guys were so much fun to interact with last time, and I want to talk about all kinds of things. I've got thoughts on Prophetic Visions, vis-a-vis timeline on release, and some things that like I'm interested in or worried about, and I want to know what you guys are thinking and what you're interested in, what you're worried about. I got some thoughts for draconian measures. Boy, I've got some thoughts for draconian measures, but I kind of want to hold on to that a little bit and maybe kind of save that for later on. How am I liking the new sets? You haven't played Amber Skies or Tokens of Change. Okay, so Amber Skies is one of my favorite sealed experiences so far. I really, really like Amber Skies in a sealed environment. I don't like it quite as much in the wider game. And Tokens of Change is a really good set. Like, there's a lot of really good and powerful synergies. But I think both sets have the same problem, and that is that they reduced the card pool, and it makes duplicates more common for commons and uncommons. It means that more decks feel the same, so there's a little bit less uniqueness in the decks and in the way that they like play and interact, in my opinion. But you know, the card pool reduction is definitely noticeable, because previously they would do 20 rares, 16 commons, 16 uncommons per house per set. And for Amber Skies and Tokens of Change, they dropped that down to 16 rares, 12 commons, and 12 uncommons, meaning we lost 12 cards per house, which multiply that by 7 houses, and that's almost 100 fewer cards, which is a significant reduction in the size of the diversity of the card pool. But, like I said, I think Amber Skies is a lot of fun in sealed. But I like it a little less when played against other things. That's just been my experience, though. And when it comes to Tokens of Change is good. But, like, I don't know. The synergies in Tokens of Change are maybe just a little too synergistic, particularly in House Dis. And a little bit in Skyborn, because they kind of got, like, the best Skyborn stuff from Amber Skies and a few other really good things in Tokens of Change that, like, allow for fast token generation. But Tokens of Change just got fast token generation in general. So that's pretty much my thoughts on, like, the newest sets. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to the Vault Tour season. I'm looking forward to... I finished up the store championships, or at least all the ones I think I'm going to do, which was only 2, but, I mean, you know, my weekends are pretty crowded, so... I've opened up almost everything in my Amber Skies Game Found box, and I have some decks that look exciting. Yeah, Amber Skies has some really fun and interesting stuff in it. It's definitely, like... I don't think it's a bad set, right? I don't want to give the impression that I think it's not good. Particularly, I think it looks actually like a lot of fun. But yeah, there's some really, really fun things. Some of the sky ships are kind of cool. Most of them are pretty bad, but some of them are kind of cool. What else? I really like Dis in Amber Skies. Dis in Amber Skies is so fun. It's disruptive in a way that forces your opponent to answer the question, which I think is really cool. Brobnar's not bad. I wish that they hadn't trimmed down Brobnar's power quite as much as they did, that we had a few more Brobnar guys that were on the big end instead of just going all the way in on goblins, because that's what they decided to do, was just basically go full bore with goblins. Mostly Dis and Brobnar. Well, I mean, there you go, right? There you go. You got the good stuff. In my opinion, right? There's some other good things out there in Amber Skies. Like, Logos is pretty good in Amber Skies for efficiency, but its Amber generation's not good. But, I mean, that's basically Logos, right? What else is in Amber Skies? Hang on. I'm going to pop over... Oh, no. I'm going to pop over to the card gallery on Arcana. Because I can't remember things off the top of my head. I'm bad at it. Okay. Let's see. So... yeah. So it's Brobnar, Dis... Aquiden in Amber Skies isn't incredible. What's up, Dave? Welcome to the stream. Aquiden isn't incredible. Geistoid's good, because Geistoid's good. Like, I mean, they reprinted In Here Somewhere and Junk Restoration. That's really all you had to do. Yeah, so Skyborn's creatures are a little disappointing, which is unfortunate. I hoped that they wouldn't be. I was really hoping their power would be a little higher overall. I think overall their power was a little low for what I was expecting. I mean, they've got some outliers, right? There's a couple of 6 power creatures out there for Skyborn, but like most of them are 3 or 4, which I feel is just maybe a little small. Especially since a lot of them have after fight abilities, and as we know, if you put an after fight ability on anything with 3 power or less, I don't even really know what you're trying to do at that point. But there are a couple of really good ones too. But yeah, Skyborn is kind of good. Actually, their actions are incredible. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, the one that heals 3 after fighting. So the reason why for that is in the early versions of Skyborn, when they were doing the early play testing, Against All Flags is a great example of this. So Against All Flags' original text was each friendly Skyborn creature gains after fight steal 1 for the remainder of the turn. Now, if you think about a guy whose normal after fight ability is that he heals 3 when he finishes fighting, that's actually really good if you have this common action that you're going to see all over the place in Skyborn that says, hey, all of your Skyborn creatures now have after fight steal 1. Like, that's good in that scenario, but because they changed what Against All Flags does, and it no longer incentivizes fighting, that fight ability just doesn't seem very good anymore. There's also, like, the 6 power guy with Taunt, who, after fight, you can move him to a flank, which, like, is okay, because there are Skyborn cards that want you to have creatures on flanks, like Seeker Missiles and whatnot, but... Or God forbid, Freedom to Be, which Freedom to Be needed an Amber Pip, and, like, Against All Flags and Redline Rotation did not need Amber Pips. The Amber Pips in House Skyborn are wild to me. I don't understand what they were thinking. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna look at the Skyborn actions in isolation, because, like, wow. How would I compare Skyborn and Amber Skies to Tokens of Change? Tokens of Change is strictly better. Tokens of Change Skyborn, strictly better. Most of the really good Skyborn actions in Amber Skies also ended up in Tokens of Change. And so, like, you know, you got to keep all the good stuff, and you only lost... You didn't lose anything all that important. And you gained some really great stuff. Like, okay, so Tokens of Change, Amber Skies, has some really cool... Or Skyborn, sorry. Has some really cool stuff that I wish had not been token locked, right? The ones that move battle line positions are good when you have reason to do it. A single Narplet in a deck makes a lot of Skyborn pods seem way more interesting. Yeah, I agree, for sure. Like, okay, Captain Pella is really good in Tokens of Change. And I feel like even if he didn't have his After Reap make a token, and you ported him over to Amber Skies with just Enhance, Draw, Gain, and Amber as the 2 enhancement pips he give, he would have been awesome. Like, that's just good. That's just a really good effect. Similarly, Where is there? Similarly, Shikari is just nuts. Like, after fight, return Shikari to hand is just good. It fully heals her. It lets you redeploy her on a flank. Like, it basically gives her both of the after fight abilities of the big 6-power Skyborn creatures we were just talking about. Like the one who heals himself for 3 and the one that moves himself to a flank. Shikari does both of those things after each of its fights because it bounces back to your hand and then you can replay it. Yeah, it makes a token when you play it, but even if you took that away, it would still be one of the better Skyborn creatures. Like, hold on, let me look at just the new stuff. Twin Lamps. Twin Lamps is really pretty darn good. I feel like, you know, you'd have to change it a little bit, but like, an action at common with a play steal one is at least more fair than, against all flags, stealing 2 and gaining you 1 for a swing of 5 for some crazy reason. That's something that Skyborn should have borrowed from Brobnar, the self-creature bounce. Yeah, I feel like Skyborn could definitely get away with that. I also want Skyborn to fight a lot like Brobnar fights, but I want them to, like, steal as opposed to gain from their fights. Hunter of Legend, also incredible. Like, even if, again, this is another one where even if you took the token generation off, just having, I mean, I would probably move it from a common to an uncommon if I was going to take the token generation off, but just having a gain in Amber, this creature gains Skirmish in a house that was supposed to be really fighty would have been great, but instead the upgrades we ended up with in Amber Skies for Skyborn, we ended up with like transmuting Lift. Like what am I supposed to do with transmuting Lift, you know? But again, like Hunter of Legend would have been so much better. Give him Skirmish. That's what he wants. They don't want to just, oh, I reap and then I get to move somewhere in the battle line. I do like Refined Adhesive, though. I love cards like Refined Adhesive that just change the way the game is played, you know, where you just have to think about the game differently now because things are happening differently, right? Because, yeah, Refined Adhesive is basically just like, okay, well, your scrap effects are... I'm pretty sure your scrap effects don't go off because it says when a card would be discarded from a player's hand, you put it under Refined Adhesive instead, which means it didn't go to your discard from your hand, so you don't get the scrap effect. And all your discard pips are now just, like, making this pile of cards you can't access. And then when you finally kill the thing with Refined Adhesive on it, it doesn't matter, it just goes straight to your discard to no benefit. It's also not a terrible way. Well, it's a pretty bad way, but, like, it's conceptually an okay way to keep somebody from getting haunted, which, you know, Grim Reminders being Grim Reminders, you've always got to keep in mind that fighting against Haunted is going to be an uphill battle, basically constantly. That, you know, you just got to keep in mind, hey, I need to be ready to keep my opponent from getting haunted because I need to be ready to keep my opponent from getting haunted. Adhesive is very interesting. I like upgrades like that. It's why my Aquidon has some of my... Yeah, no, there's some really great Aquidon upgrades. I like any card that just changes the math of the game, right? Like Whirlpool, Curiosaurus, to a lesser extent, Heart of the Forest. Not to say that Heart of the Forest doesn't change the math. I just like it a little less because it changes the math of the game, but like in a way that I don't think is particularly fun. But I get that. You know, everybody plays it a little bit differently. There's also Curse of Forgetfulness changes the math of the game a lot. Like cards that just make you play differently because now things don't work the way they did a few seconds ago, you know? But yeah, broadly, I am of the opinion that the cards that they added to House Skyborn in Tokens of Change are just, like, the good Skyborn cards that probably should have just been around. Curiosaurus got played a lot when you first started. Yeah, Curiosaurus can make an otherwise not so great deck pretty scary. I have a deck where I use Curiosaurus and I get like 1 amber on like 12 or 13 creatures. And then if my opponent plays a creature, I board wipe and I just get like all of that amber. It's nuts. It's totally nuts. But yeah, broadly, I just feel like these are almost all, I mean, tokens, yeah, I don't know. Not the tokens aren't good. The Skyborn did not get good tokens, but like these are not bad. These are some of the better Skyborn cards, and they ended up in Tokens of Change, which like I kind of know why that happened, because Tokens of Change and Amber Skies were developed at the same time. Both of them required a lot of development effort. Amber Skies, they wanted to do this extra battle line thing, and it turned out that didn't work, and they had to scrap it, and it just left them with a development deficit, which is, I think, why both of those sets ended up with fewer cards in their card pool. But, like, still kind of a feels bad situation. Curiosaurus, Shadow of Dis, and Gateway. Oh! Dang. Yeah. Yeah, Shadows of Dis would absolutely be not at all bad. Especially if all the Amber's on your opponent's stuff at the time. What I like is I can blow up the board while all the Amber's on my stuff, and I still end up with the Amber, right? Because because they're all tagged for death. The destroyed effects go off. One Amber from each one moves to my opponent's strongest thing. And then, because his creature didn't have Amber on it when it was tagged for death, it doesn't push one of them back to me, and I get to collect all of it as benefit, which is really, really cool. I don't get to pull that off very often, though, because my opponent basically just stops playing creatures once they realize I'm only going to put one Amber on each of my dudes. Which is fair. You know, I get it. I understand why you don't want me to have all that Amber, but I want me to have all that Amber, and, you know, maybe we can work something out. A little quid pro quo. But yeah, no, I like the new stuff. I do. But I have concerns, right? I have concerns. And I think reasonable concerns about, do you think Tokens of Change is going to be the main meta in 2025 Archon? Ironic that Token Change being a special set, not a main set. I don't know. It probably will see some play. So the data that I've been seeing so far indicates that Grim Reminders is still basically the top of the power curve. The Grim Reminders has to fight a little harder for it. A Amber Skies deck did win the Archon Open at KFC, which made a lot of people think that, you know, maybe the days of Grim Reminders were over. But if you look at the top 8s for that tournament, you'll see that Grim Reminders still overrepresented in the top 8s. But Amber Skies was still kind of new then. My guess is, I think Grim Reminders is still probably going to be dominant. But we're going to see Amber Skies and we're going to see Tokens of Change. I think you're going to see a lot of Thrall decks. You're going to see a lot of Katina Fiends. You're going to see a lot of the very top end of Tokens of Change, but I don't know. Because that's the thing. Grim Reminders is still pretty hard to beat. And even though there are more countermeasures, just the number of key cheats in Grim Reminders and the number of key cheats that have very little opportunity to interact is still really, really high. And ultimately, at the high tournament level for Vault Tours, that's how you win, is having key cheats that your opponent can't interact with. I have a hard time grasping the meta at the top end, but I did get my teeth kicked in by a Katina Fiend deck. Yeah. So, we're in a problematic place right now in competitive KeyForge. And I think we're in that place because we haven't figured out how to tamp down the top end without also bringing up the power level of whatever comes next, which is a problem we need to solve. And for the longest time, I've been a big advocate of erratas as a way to solve it, because I just don't think that releasing new sets that can solve the problem is the answer. Partly because one of the things you have to keep in mind is that the solution has to be more common than the problem. So if the thing that's causing a problem is a common, then the thing that solves the problem has to be 2 or 3 commons, because you need the answer to be more prevalent than the problem, right? Because generally the answer just stops the problem, but it doesn't actually advance the game, because whatever's the problem is advancing the game. And if you have the answer advance the game as well, then you're just in a power creep spiral, and that can only go down from there, you know? Makes me glad I'm just a filthy casual. I agree. I agree. I like that I'm a more casual player, you know? So since releasing sets that come out later to solve the problems of older sets isn't, in my mind, isn't really a viable way to solve it, you only have a couple of other choices. What's up, welcome to the stream. You only have a couple of other choices. One of those is to errata problematic cards. If a card is making things really good, then you have to change it to make it worse. Nobody wants to do that because then there'll be a lot of players who've been playing decks that were really good that are suddenly really bad, and that's not a feels-good situation to be in. But if the alternative is a power-creeping death spiral that eventually leads this game to be, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is a game notorious for its power creep getting completely out of hand and leaving the player base basically at the point where you flip a coin and whoever wins the coin flip wins the game, to the point where, like, literally at high-level tournaments in Yu-Gi-Oh!, sometimes if you lose the coin flip, you just concede because it's not even worth playing the one turn you're going to get, if you even get one turn. And I don't want to get into that situation, right? That's not a good or healthy place to be. What's up, Chase? Welcome to the stream. We're talking about how to keep the meta healthy for high-level KeyForge, which is, of course, a very contentious topic. Papers Eat, hello, welcome. Oh, man, come on, guys. Let's get in. Let's huddle up. Let's talk. So what I've thought is, like, okay, you know, my thought was you kind of have to do erratas. But I think I'm overlooking something, right? And lost some players with GR Amber Skies. I think what it's lost is players who aspire to be competitive but realize they can't be because the competitive meta is so hard to get into, right? I mean, I don't know another way to say that. The competitive meta is just so far out of reach. That's a way to say it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the other card game I play, and that game is so wrecked by power creep. Power creep doesn't even feel like it's the right term anymore. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? I totally get that. So, I think what we've lost is we've lost players who aspire to be competitive, but realize that they just kind of can't because the barrier has gotten so firmly placed, right? Because the Grim Reminders is just so hard to overcome because it ended up being so powerful. So my original thought was, okay, if you can't wait for future sets to come out with answers, because the answers would have to be more prominent than the problem, and we've had trouble getting them to actually do that, then I would say I was originally thinking erratas, but I realized something recently. Guys, I realized something recently. When I was talking to one of my buddies who's been playing KeyForge longer than I have, right? I started playing in, like, Worlds Collide Mass Mutation. Right, I'm not actually an old hat for KeyForge, as it turns out. I'm kind of a newbie a little bit. I started talking to a guy though who'd been playing since Coda, since Call of the Archons, and I realized we've had the answer this whole time. That it's been, like, built into the game from day one, and for some reason we're just not using it. The answer is chains. Like, the answer to the problem of how do we make sure that every set can be competitive in the high-level KeyForge environment is, well, if something is so incredibly competitive that it boxes everything else out, it accumulates chains. Like, apparently that's a thing they used to do. I never played in tournaments when they did that, but apparently if your deck was really good and it used to win a lot of tournaments, it would accumulate chains, and it would just keep doing that until it had enough chains on it that other decks could stand a chance, right? And I know we've as a community moved into a place where we think chains are just like this really bad thing that we want to avoid, but, like, I feel like it solves a lot of problems, right? You know? Isn't power creep part of all card games and even a must to make the game entertaining in the long term? There are always ups and downs, and chains are not the solution. Well, so there are always ups and downs. But, so, chains aren't the solution for everything. Chains are the solution for keeping high-level competitive KeyForge interesting and accessible for even players who are perhaps not as able to dedicate a huge amount of time, money, and effort to hunting down very specific, very powerful strategies, right? I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all solution. I'm saying it's a way to make competitive KeyForge accessible so that, for instance, one deck doesn't qualify 3 different people for Worlds in Archon, right? Because every time that deck achieves something, it gets tamped down so that other decks can enter the field, and we get more decks played, and we get more players playing them, and we just get a broader, more interesting field at the high levels of competitive play. Instead of this kind of narrowing razor where you get down to like the 2 or 3 most ridiculously broken strategies and nothing else is even relevant. Which we're not quite there in KeyForge, but that's sort of the direction it feels like we're kind of inevitably going. And you're right, power ups and downs are a thing. They're going to happen, right? And in a casual environment, that doesn't really matter very much because casual players will just play casually and they'll self-moderate to whatever feels like the right place to be, or as a community, they'll push out the things that are causing problems. But at the competitive level, at the higher end, it feels bad. The same half a dozen or dozen decks are just dominating, Vault Tour after Vault Tour after Vault Tour after Vault Tour, and nobody else even really feels like they have a chance to kind of wedge their way in. And I'm not disparaging the players playing those decks. They're incredibly skilled players. I'm just saying, like, if we tamped those decks down, if every time they performed incredibly well, every time they did, performed outstandingly, they got tamped down, then the field would broaden. We'd see more decks achieving, and we'd see more strategies played, and we'd see players whose investment is more moderate actually stand a chance and show an interest in those higher levels of play. So, yeah, it's possible to do a deck handicapping scheme, right? Because each deck is individually tracked. And not only are they individually tracked onto who owns them, but we can individually track wins, right? What did they call their tournament software? I don't remember anymore. But the Ghost Galaxy tournament software that they use at all the Vault Tours keeps track of each deck's win and loss and who they played against and everything. And so, like, you could set up a system where it's like, okay, did you playstyle? Thank you. You could set up a system where playstyle is just like, all right, you beat a deck that had less chains than you did, so a deck with less handicap than you had, so you're going to get more handicap, right? But if you beat a deck that has more handicap than you, maybe that doesn't I don't know. There's ways to do this, right? I don't think I'm math savvy enough to work this system out myself and, like, make it perfect and balanced in a way that would still be fun and interesting. But I think there is a way to do it, and the software we already have access to can do it, right? They don't even need to make anything they don't already have. They just would have to give it a new function, right? It's a little bit like the Help from Future Self guys were talking about, that just the current software we have right now could add, like, deck badges or, like, affiliation banners or things like that, because we're already keeping track of all this data. Let's use it, right? Well, one of the pieces of data we have is that the high-end tournament play is kind of stale right now, and I know Amber Skies and Tokens of Change should shake that up a little, but, like, we've seen the final refrain going on right now, and we got to the top 4 in final refrain, and guess what? I mean, it's the same players with the same decks who were dominating basically all of Archon last year. And there was some new stuff in that field. Now, again, that was super high-level play, but, yeah, I know some people tried out some different stuff for, like, handicaps, but we have a handicapping system. Inbuilt, like, as part of the game. And so why not just use it, Yeah, so yeah, in a league you can assign chains over time based on wins and losses, but if you can automatically generate this in a tournament by an algorithm for all decks, you have matching chains. Yeah, basically, right. So if you tell the playstyle software to compare these two decks and say, hey, which one had how many chains, and then look at, okay, this one won with more chains, so it needs more chains because it already had more and it still wasn't enough to pull it down, or this one won with less chains than its opponent had. So maybe that means it doesn't need to go up, or one, there's an algorithm for this. There's math behind this that somebody could figure out. I'm not mathy enough for it on the spot, right? Like, I would need to think about it for a while, but at the top level, so I've also thought about that. That's a thing you could do, is either retire the deck, or like one entry into whatever tournament format per deck would also be a pretty good way to go. And you could even do this dynamically during a tournament. If the playstyle software can keep track of it, you could dynamically adjust chains throughout the course of an ongoing tournament. And it could be updated on your Master Vault, and it would just tell you, hey, this is how many chains this deck has. And you could even have it on the playstyle app when it pops up. It'd be like, your opponent is this guy, his deck has this many chains. Your deck is this one, you have this many chains. I don't hate the idea of retiring championship decks. I understand why some people don't like it, but I get that would help a little, but I don't think it solves the overall problem, right? That's like, you're kind of picking at the edge of a bigger issue that you're not quite actually addressing. At least in my opinion. That's just rantings from a guy who's more on the casual side of things. I can barely get a positive win-loss record when it comes to Vault Tours. So, obviously it would benefit me if everybody who was doing incredibly well had to fight against a handicap, but I don't know. I do think that might be healthier, especially because, at least right now, the game's community is kind of small, and so the people who are trying to get into this community and are trying to be moderately competitive, not even necessarily incredibly competitive, but like moderately competitive in a Vault Tour, in a Vault Tour environment, are really running into some pretty significant roadblocks. And, I think we should do some stuff to dial that back. And you're right, Ghost Galaxy right now has a real problem with chains, but I don't think they were a bad idea. And I kind of wish we'd play around with them a little bit more. I really wish we saw more cards like Binding Irons, where we could put chains on our opponent, or something like that. Or like an artifact that says each time your opponent discards a card from hand, they get a chain or something, There's concepts to play around with here that we've just kind of decided, we don't want to play around with those concepts because chains are no fun. But I don't think that's really true. I think chains are dynamic and interesting, or at least they could be if we were interacting with them and using them in a somewhat more proactive way. And again, most of this applies to a more tournament environment, but as far as like new card design, I think there's a design space there that we're just kind of not dealing with. Okay, I want to make a little bit of a pivot. If you guys want to talk about this more, that's fine. I absolutely will. But I want to make a little bit of a pivot. I want to talk for a moment about Prophetic Visions, because we've gotten quite a few spoilers for that now. In fact, I'm gonna switch over to the Arcana spoiler page so that we're kind of looking at all of this. I have some thoughts on Prophetic Visions. I am very excited for this set. Very excited. But there's a couple of cards that I really hope are not final in the versions that we saw them in. Adaptive chain bid is great for kitchen. Oh yeah, no, adaptive chain bidding, or so yeah. For kitchen table, chains are also a really, really fun idea. They there's so much to play around with here, and I think Ghost Galaxy moving away from it is I like the chain principle right from the start because it fits logically into KeyForge. Yeah, basically, right? It feels right. Anyway, looking at Prophetic Visions, there's a couple of cards that I really just hope aren't finalized. Top of my list, Cosmic Recompense. That fate effect was fine when I first saw it. And I was like, oh, okay, so you just have to, know what your opponent's going to do before they do it. But 2 prophecies came out that just made me think, oh no, that's got to change. And that first one is Outlook Not So Good. After your opponent chooses an active house that matches no cards in play, fulfill Outlook Not So Good. If I turn 1 Outlook Not So Good with a Cosmic Recompetence under it, and then just discard a card from my hand instead of playing something, I have forced my opponent to lose their entire first turn. Like, gone. You know? That's not a feels good. And even more problematically, stars aligned. If at the start of your opponent's turn, if each player has the same number of creatures fulfill stars aligned, my opponent has no interaction with this. If I manage to make it so that I have the same number of creatures that you have, and I put Cosmic Recompense underneath stars aligned, you will start your turn over. That's a feels bad. And in a game like KeyForge, making your opponent skip an entire turn is a huge deal, especially when you didn't have to guess. Like, there are a couple of cards that can do something like that, but I think Prophecies are a bad idea. It doesn't fit with KeyForge. I don't agree. I think Prophecies are an interesting idea. I like it when KeyForge does something it hasn't done before, and their take on the trap card concept from, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, I think, actually a good direction overall, but, like, exactly why I hate corner the market. Let's see. I gotta remember Corner the Market. Give me a second. Because I was thinking of the discard that you pick a house on your opponent's ID card and they have to play that house, and if you get it right, then they're just hosed. Corner the Market, though, doesn't make you skip a turn for no effect. Corner the Market makes you not play anything out of your hand, so if you have things in play, you can still use them. And you could just choose whatever house is most prevalent in your hand, discard all those cards, and they go to your archive, which, again, is generating efficiency. I mean, it's not as good as if you got your full turn, but, like, it is generating efficiency. You are kind of doing something with that turn. Yeah, trying new things. Let's remember the outcry back when... so... I love it when KeyForge does something new, even if it turns out to not be excellent, right? I will forever be a defender of the Tide, because I think the Tide was a good idea. Do I think the execution was perfect? No. No, it wasn't. It was very imperfect. But, like, that doesn't mean the idea was bad or that they were wrong to try something new. You know, I love that KeyForge is a game where we can try new things. And I want it to stay that way. I want to find the dis card I was talking about, because there's a dis action from, like, the really early sets. It might be all the way back from Coda. Control the Weak. So I liken Cosmic Recompense to Control the Weak. But the difference is, with Control the Weak, I have to guess correctly, or have the ability to look at my opponent's hand, but dis mostly doesn't do that. So I have to look at my opponent's discard, look at the cards they have in play, and be like, all right, I think you don't have any X in your hand. I play Control the Weak, I choose X, and if I'm right, then you don't get to play. But there's still that uncertainty, right? There's still that I could be wrong. But in the case of Cosmic Recompense with stars aligned, I'm not ever going to be wrong. If I get both of those cards in the same deck and I play them correctly, you just lose a turn. And I still got to play an entire turn. And to make that even more difficult, I don't have to play a Star Alliance turn to put Cosmic Recompense underneath stars aligned. But in order to play Control the Weak, I have to play a Dis turn, which means everything I do this turn is limited by what Dis is capable of. But in the case of stars aligned and Cosmic Recompense, I can have done anything else on that turn so long as it ended with us both having the same number of creatures. Which, like, the easiest way to do that is just play a board wipe. And then neither of us have any creatures, and 0 plus 0 is 0, and boop, you skip your turn with nothing on board, and it's back to me again. Like, that just feels like a thing that we should avoid, right? And the fact that even just in the previews, which it looks like there's going to be like 21 prophecies, but just the fact that in the preview prophecies they gave us, there's 2 different ways to do that, feels bad. And so either the prophecies need to be changed, which I think I'm less inclined to think the prophecies need to be changed, and more inclined to think that Cosmic Recompense is just too good. I think maybe the fate effect should be something like end the current phase instead of end your turn. But that would require everybody in KeyForge to understand what the phases are a little bit better. But, like, I still think that would be less awful than losing an entire turn. Like, if I'm in the middle of my active phase and I lose it and I have to go to my end of turn and do my end of turn stuff, or if I'm in my forge key or whatever and I have to lose all of that's still bad, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it changed by release either. Now, caveat, asterisk on this. At least Cosmic Recompense is a rare. And I am way more forgiving with rares. To make matters even more interesting, Cosmic Recompense would have to be combined with a prophecy that you have good control of, like Stars Aligned. And those are going to be, I don't think they're going to be equivalent to a rare, but they're, you're not going to, if there's like 21 of them and you only get 4, how often are you going to get Stars Aligned and Cosmic Recompense together? Probably not that often, right? But at the same time, if I open 600 decks or whatever, I'm just saying, like, looking into the future, Prophetic Visions looking into the future. Looking into the future, I already see a problem, and I think maybe we should address it. Or at least I would. There are always cards that currently feel bad, and suddenly with a future set, they are better to dodge with new cards that didn't exist before. Yeah, but, like, how do you dodge this? Like, how do you dodge if at the start of my turn we have the same number of creatures, I lose my whole turn? Like, what possible KeyForge nonsense? You'd have to do something during your opponent's turn, which is one of those fundamental do not do's in KeyForge. You know what I mean? Like, generally you're right. If something's really strong, it'll be less strong when other things can counter it. But, like, how do you counter you lose your turn because I said so? And imagine if there's a way to recur Cosmic Recompense. If I have a way to get it back into my hand each turn so that I can put it back under Stars Aligned, put Stars Aligned back out, and just lock you out of the game forever. Like, even just a tiny bit of recursion, which I don't think I've seen in Prophetic Visions so far, but even just a tiny bit of recursion just busts that wide open, Gosh, I hope there will never be a stack in KeyForge. I really hope that's not the answer. Like, I understand why it might have to be the answer, but man, I so do not want that to be the answer. I really appreciate that KeyForge maintains this one thing, then the next thing mentality. And I especially don't like the idea of interrupting the other player's turn, because one of my favorite things about KeyForge is the near omnipotent level of power you have during your own turn. What is a stack? So the stack is a concept in Magic the Gathering by which card effects can be stacked on top of each other. So basically one player will do something, and then in response another player will do something else. And you can stack several of these effects on top of each other, and then once all of the effects have been stacked on top of each other, you resolve them from the last one added to the first one that occurred. It causes the game to be very reactionary, and it means that sometimes interactions get really, really complicated, and the stack can get very, very long, and you have to keep track of the order it resolves backwards in. It can be a thing. That's exactly what I hope doesn't happen. Sorry, Papers. You hope that we don't get a stack? I'm not exactly sure what you really don't want to happen. That's why I don't like this set. It feels like they're using a technical loophole to allow for interruptions on your turn. I mean, kind of. I like it better when your opponent can see it coming and play around it, because then it's more interaction, right? Then it's an opportunity to give your opponent a challenge that they have to play around. Which, again, Outlook Not So Good kind of undercuts, and Outlook Not So Good only undercuts it insofar as the first couple of turns, it's pretty much inevitable. Oh, I hope that a stack does not come. Yeah, I agree. No, a stack in KeyForge would be the one thing I absolutely don't want them to have to do. If it comes to that, I would be very upset. So I like the prophecies that your opponent has to play around, because one of my favorite things in KeyForge is the dynamic interaction, right? The back and forth between I push, you pull. Dis has a lot of that. Dis will play cards where it's like, okay, I've played this thing out. If you let it stay on the board, it's going to cause a problem, so you have to do something about it. Or we were just talking about like Curiosaurus and Whirlpool and adhesive. What's it called? The Skyborn adhesive upgrade. Change the way the game plays, and your opponent has to think about it more dynamically. I sort of see these as an extension of that in their perfect form. Obviously, they'll be released in their imperfect form. Yeah, curses. Curses are the same way. Curse of Forgetfulness, all of those. You got to play around it. In a perfect form, that's what these prophecies are going to be. They're going to be something your opponent has to play around. Something that you'll put out that will present them with a modification to their game plan that they have to interact with, and they have to decide, is modifying my game plan worth avoiding whatever consequence I will receive if I plow forward without consideration. So I think these have the potential to be very dynamic and very fun, but they also have the potential to cross that line, and I totally understand being nervous that they might cross that line, right? Because Ghost Galaxy has gained a bit of a reputation that they've sort of earned for maybe not playtesting these things as much as they should. And maybe not looking for the edge cases as much as they should. I don't know exactly how to phrase that the way I want to, but that's the concept, right? Is that there's some things that can happen if you're not paying super good attention, and that you're not specifically hedging against, that you probably don't want to happen. I do have another question. I'm curious what you guys think, because I have my thoughts on this. But Prophetic Visions is basically going to be an 8-house set. Do we think they're going to go back to 20 rares, 16 commons, 16 uncommons, like we had for every set except for Amber Skies and Tokens of Change? Or do you think that the new standard for sets is going to be that what they set for Amber Skies and Tokens of Change, where you get 16 rares, 12 commons, 12 uncommons? Particularly with 8 houses to design as opposed to the normal 7, should we expect that the card pool per house, because card pool overall obviously will be larger because there's an 8th house, but should we expect that the card pool per house will be that same reduced amount that we saw for Amber Skies and Tokens of Change? Personally, I really hope not. I feel like the deck diversity took a pretty major hit when we reduced the card pool. And that made the discovery element less, right? And since this really is supposed to be a game about discovery, I don't like things that make that less, but at the same time, it's 8 houses, right? And like we just talked about, Ghost Galaxy's been having a hard time developing these sets in a way that doesn't have problems, right? With putting enough playtesting time and effort into it. And one way they could lessen that is by having fewer cards in the card pool. I'm hoping that won't be the case, because most of these houses are ones with really big reprint catalogs, so they're going to be able to reprint a huge chunk of the cards that end up in the set. And hopefully that will mitigate the need for high levels of playtesting for the cards that are going to be new. But I honestly don't know. And actually, I just thought about doing this. But what I could do to kind of get an idea is... Oh no, is Discovery not on here? No! Well, okay. I can't do what I was going to do. I was going to check Discovery and see if Discovery has the 20-16-16 or if it's 16-12-12. Yeah, I don't have a problem with less cards in special sets, but main sets should keep their largest. I agree. I totally agree. I actually don't mind so much that Tokens of Change was a smaller card pool. I only mention it when I talk about Amber Skies because the two sets were developed side by side, and it's very, very obvious they were developed side by side and that both of them kind of took a hit from being developed side by side. We'll see. My statement was always one set a year is enough and offers more playtesting. I agree that it would definitely offer more playtesting. And they are a really small studio, and so maybe one set a year is all they can handle, but I would hope that's not true. Realistically, if I'm putting myself in Ghost Galaxy's shoes, and I'm trying to figure out how many sets I want to put out a year. I do think I would want 2 main sets a year. I feel like you lose so much momentum in player investment if you only put out 1 main set a year. And I feel like 2 a year is a good pace. It gives you 6 months to play around with something. But they also should like advance their development schedule so that they're developing further ahead. Anyway, beyond that, I do think a Vault Master set is a great idea. I love the Vault Master sets. I think they're really fun. I think they're really interesting. They make great prizes. You get the geolocated decks, and it's all reprints, right? So there's very little development time that you have to put into a Vault Master set. You just kind of pick out your favorite reprints of the last... Well, I would focus heavily on the last couple of years of reprints, but you can also put in older stuff that people haven't seen in a while and things that people are going to think is fun and interesting. God, the sun is not my friend, guys. And beyond that, if you have the development time and you have the resources, but make sure you have the development time and the resources, that your 2 core sets are nailed down and perfect, and that the Vault Master set is dealt with. If you have the development time and resources, you could do 1 special set. Particularly if that special set is also basically just reprints, like Discovery was... or Crucible Clash is probably going to be. I don't remember if they said there were going to be new cards in Crucible Clash or not. I'm going to switch back to talkie modes that you guys... Oh my god, the sun is not my friend. Holy cow. Whoa, that looks terrible. Ah, man, how long have I been making you guys look at that? Give me a second. Let me see if I can adjust my sensitivities so that that's less terrible. At least until the sun passes. And then we might have to change it again. Oh, that looks really bad. Can I make it less bad? Erg. I don't know if I can, guys. Not without losing half of my face. I don't know. Would you rather lose half of my face or have an incredibly high lens flare from the sun? It's a bright day here. I've gone blind! Yeah, right? Back off a little bit, and it's a little bit better. But, like, the sun is going to get to me, and it's going to be really, really bright. I should do the rest of the stream half invisible. Man. Ugh. I think I'm just going to adjust the settings a little bit. No, keep my face. Okay, yeah. I'm going to adjust the settings a little bit. This is, I mean, like, it's still really bad, but... I'm sorry. The sun is out, and it's bright, and it's coming in through my window, and that window doesn't have blinds, which maybe it should, but here we are, and it should go by, I don't know, in the next 20 minutes or so, hopefully. In my opinion, there is no need for so many sets as KeyForge has no deck building. That's why other games of this type have many sets in a year to entice customers to buy boosters. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Hard to tell from the database I have access to, but looks like Logos in Discovery has 19 rares discovered so far. Okay, so it's closer to a normal size set then. Well, then maybe we are going back to 20 rares, 16 common, 16 uncommon. That would be good. I get what you're saying, right? That you don't need boosters to keep investment high, right? Because you don't have to deck build. But at the same time, I do feel like if your game is about discovering new decks, then there need to be new things to discover on a somewhat regular basis. You can space it out a little more, and KeyForge already does, right? Putting out 2 mainline releases a year is practically unheard of in any other card game. There's just about nothing else in the card game market, in the TCG market, that just puts out 2 main sets a year, right? But I do think you want to keep coming out with new and interesting things to engage with, and you want to do it on a somewhat regular schedule. So I think 2 main sets a year is probably fine, but I do think they overdid it last year. There was way, way too many sets that came out last year, especially the special sets. Way too many of them. Okay, Dave, you want to know my thoughts on Discovery? I think Discovery is exactly what it was supposed to be, and perfect for being what it was supposed to be. I think Discovery is a good entry point for new players. The concepts are uncomplicated. The decks are quick. They're quick, but they're not, like, incredibly overpowered, right? Like, you've got good cards that move fast, but you're not doing crazy combo stuff. Like, Plague Rats is one of the better things I've seen in terms of like combo potential in Discovery. And if Plague Rats is the top end of your combo potential, that's a pretty good place for new players, you know? Let's imagine the following. You play one new deck every month and learn it. That makes 12 decks per year or one display. Yeah. I mean, no, I get where you're coming from, and I don't think you're wrong in concept, but like, I think realistically, TCG players, even KeyForge players, play other games too, and you've got to keep them coming back with some amount of frequency. I don't think we need to go crazy hard with this. You know, I'm not saying, but like, most of the guys I know who play TCGs play multiple TCGs, and they might play Lorcana, or they might play Magic, or they might play Yu-Gi-Oh, or they might play something else, and they need something bringing them back to KeyForge on a somewhat regular basis. Also, yeah, that's true, Dave. GG needs to sell decks. It's the way they keep the doors open, especially because GameFounds are just not working anymore. Which we all knew the GameFound thing wasn't going to work forever, right? We all knew that was not going to be a forever plan. And that had to kind of fall apart at some point. So I need a special set alongside Prophetic Visions so I don't feel like I'm skipping half a year when I get annoyed with prophecies. Yo, speaking of the special set that's coming along Prophetic Visions, I am so ready for Crucible Clash. I am so ready for like a sealed set that's meant to be played sealed. I'm so excited. I stopped playing other TCGs because they update too frequently. You know what? I think KeyForge is at a really good rate. I'm not saying we should change the rate. In fact, I like the 2 core sets a year release pace. I think that's a very good measured pace. It gives you lots of time to explore the set and enjoy it and find what you like about it. Guys, I might have to do something about the sun. I've got a plan, and it's kind of a bad idea, but I might just throw a blanket over that window and see if that helps at all. Give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to see if I can do something to make this go away, because the glare's only going to, if I move forward in the sun, it's so bright. Give me a couple minutes. Hold on. See if I can. I've got this here TARDIS blanket. Oh, you can't see the TARDIS on it. It's there. Okay. I got this here TARDIS blanket, and I'm gonna throw it up, and I'm gonna see if it helps. Okay, now we're a little dark. I'm going to turn the lights in the room on. Okay. Ugh. Hey, that's much better. That's much better. All about the struggles of fighting this. Yeah. Okay. That looks so much better. Now I can return to my usual sensitivity settings. Oh, no, that's not quite right. Hold on. Y'all get to see me fiddle with settings in real time. What a treat. All right. Okay. Hey! I'm nice and bright, and it's not like eclipsing my face. This is perfect. The TARDIS saves the day once again. Okay. So, I think the update rate is pretty good. Fight for the sun. Fight! Yes, absolutely. There's another thing I want to talk about. Guys, I have a million topics. And if you want to talk about more about something we're already talking about, that's fine too. I totally understand. But, like, I'm so excited. There's so many KeyForge things to talk about. Because we're just getting so much news. I'm going to pop over here. I want to talk about draconian measures, which I know is way in the future. I know we're all like, oh my god, that's so far in the future, but hear me out. I have thoughts. I have thoughts and I will share them because I'm excited. Okay, so draconian measures, right? This was the GameFound article where they announced draconian measures. It's got some lore text at the top. I also like dragons, Ketzer. I'm so excited for more dragons in KeyForge. I need them. Even though we just got some dragons, not enough. We need more. Okay, so here, this bottom bit. The prophecies have foretold a great change to the Crucible. Time itself will quake. What was forgotten will be remembered. A new house will arise, and another will fall. Comments are covering the screen. Oh no! Hold on. I can fix it. I can fix it. It can be fixed. Oh, that's a problem. All right, here, let's move comments. What if I do that and then put myself above it? Is that okay? That seems probably fine. Mars. I don't know. Maybe Mars. But I've got a thought though. It's okay. So here's draconian measures. There's the thing. Okay. So no. Here's tinfoil hats on, everyone. Engage tinfoil hat. Here we go. I don't know what they're talking about with another will fall. That could be the Mars thing. But I'd like to play on the fall of the Roman Empire. But a new house will arise. Here's my thought. I'm going to bop over to the anomalies, where they talked about the new anomalies that were coming out, and they showed us Antennagog. Look at Antennagog, look at Infomancer, look at Memolith. Tell me that those don't look like they come from the same house. Go ahead, look at these cards. Tell me that these don't look like they are all connected thematically, right? Here, let's pop over to the spoilers. We'll take a closer look at Antennagog, and then we'll take a closer look. Let's get rid of that because we don't need that anymore. Then we'll take a closer look at nope, not that. At Infomancer and Memolith. We'll put all of these together and we'll take a look. Bam. Lore! Right? Ah! Lore! Sorry, that was probably pretty loud. Yes, lore! Lore things are happening. Alright, so here's Antennagog, right? I will also say, all three of these are graft cards. These are the ones that have graft effects. Here's Infomancer, right? And here's Memolith, right? I think all three of these may be hybrid houses. No, I don't think so. I think this is an entirely new house. I think this is a house we haven't seen before. I think this is something new, right? I think this is something new, and I think like I'm really getting like Borg infection virus kind of thing, like just, you know, they're infected with something, or like nanobots that are turning them into cyborg. Because Infomancer and Antennagog both have cyborg, right? House Geiger. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I want one. Also, of these three cards, only Antennagog, has flavor text, and it says, "I believe in something greater than myself, a better world." That sounds like brainwashing 101 to me. Like, or I mean, maybe it's genuine, but like, look at this guy. Does this guy look like he believes in a better world, or like he eats babies? Which thing do we think, right? Which one? You know? Maybe not eats babies. That might be too much. But like, I'm just looking at these guys, right? And I'm looking at graft and what like it implies that they are doing. And I'm like, man, that seems like this is some kind of like infection or virus or nanobots. This is only a test. Would love an edgier sci-fi house, right? Yeah. Absolutely. That's the Firefly quote. Oh, it is a Firefly quote. You're right. I don't know if that has anything to do with what the card is supposed to be connected to, though, right? Yeah, that is a Firefly quote. I hadn't thought about that. Or maybe I had and I just forgotten, because I forget things all the time. House AM? Oh, it's from the movie. Okay. Yeah, I don't... man. I watched that movie. I for sure did. I loved Firefly. But I don't remember the context around that quote and if that would inform anything about this card or not. Maybe it would, but maybe it wouldn't. Anyway, looking at these, I see a thematic through line, right? They all look like they could have a lot in common. Oh, it's from the bad guy. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Then we're right there together then. Evil computer from I have no mouth, but I must. Oh goodness. Yes. But yes though, right? I'm fading. Oh no. Y'all can't hear me? That's horrible. I can't let that happen. Can you not hear me? Hold on. I'm getting response from my mic. Test. Am I good? Or do you mean I'm like getting hoarse or something? I've got water. I should drink some water. You can hear me okay? Oh, that's good. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Sound is perfect. Great. Good. No, I think this is the new house they're talking about. Or at least I hope that it is, right? And then the graft mechanic would get introduced in draconian measures. I kind of want it to be a house-exclusive mechanic, but I also kind of don't. Part of me really liked that Grim Reminders introduced the scrap mechanic and gave it to everybody, and then it's been only in Geistoid ever since. And I kind of liked the way that worked, but I also wonder if maybe that's part of why Grim Reminders ended up being too strong. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not a good idea to give everybody graft and then bring it down to this house. And I don't know what this house is going to be called. I'm excited to find out. But I feel like when they say a new house will rise, I'm hoping they mean that these cards that we're seeing that have a thematic through line that doesn't match any of our current houses will be that new house. Sidebar, those of you who've heard my rants before will know there is a house that was in the KeyForge role-playing setting that we still haven't gotten yet. Scrap is still distributed a lot in Amber Skies. Oh, I guess you're right. There were several people who ended up with it in Amber Skies. Oh, Haunted is the one I meant. I'm so sorry. I said Scrap. I meant Haunted. My bad. I was wrong. I meant Haunted, not Scrap. Apologies. Anyway. God, where was I? I totally lost my train of thought. Draconian Measures, new house will rise. Oh, you guys will know that there is another house that we were told would get added to the game eventually in the KeyForge role-playing setting, called House Inspired, which are basically like ascetic monks who aspire to have a life where... Yeah, naming the RPG thing. Yeah, House Inspired. Who aspire to keep pieces of raw amber raw, and so that they don't become emotionally resonant, which I think is just a super cool idea. And they introduced some named characters in the role-playing setting, and like they got a full house breakdown, the same as all the other houses that we had up until that point. And since that has come out, we've introduced at least 3 houses that weren't in the role-playing book. Geistoid, Aquiden, and not Skyborn, Redemption, have all gotten introduced, and they weren't in the role-playing book. So I want House Inspired to get in the game already. I'm really, really ready. I'm just ready. I'm beyond ready for them to be here. But fear of being culturally incentivized. That would make me very sad. That would make me very, very sad if that's actually the reason. I understand the need to approach cultures with an idea of sensitivity in mind. But like, I don't know. Also, some minor houses mentioned, like Mirror and Arms Raised. Yeah, and the Creepy Data Thieves. Oh, no, there's definitely other minor houses that I really would like to see in the future. Also, I went through all the minor houses. None of them feel right for this, except maybe the AI house, which I think Mirror is that one, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look through the book again. But I did look through it when I was theory crafting this, when I was feverishly dreaming it up. And I didn't think any of the minor houses looked like they matched, but I feel like House Inspired does not need more sensitivity than doing Sky Pirates needed, right? I mean, I admit there have never been any pirates in the sky, but there have been pirates, right? There are people who have a heritage of piracy, although most of them have moved on to other cultures. I don't know. Cultural sensitivity is not my strong point. I will freely admit that. But I like being able to explore ideas and concepts and cultures through a sci-fi fantasy lens in this unique and interesting world. I don't know. In this day and age, yes, I can understand such anxiety, which is a shame if you try to make everything perfect so that everyone is happy, which is never possible. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try to be sensitive, but like, at the end of the day, this is a game, right? We're here to have a good time, and we're here to have fun, and it's not really meant to be an incredibly thoughtful dissection of cultures and history. It's meant to be, you know, a playful, whimsical world on a planet that's, you know, 100 times larger than our sun. You know, like, this is a wacky, crazy place. And I like the idea. It just interacts with Amber in a really fun way, too, because, like, Amber is this stuff that if you have a strong emotion and you hold on to Amber and you will it to be something, it will change. And the idea that there's an entire house that's like, no, we're going to use Amber as a barometer for our own emotional maturity, our own emotional self-control, I think is really cool. It's a really cool design space, right? I think that's very good. I do have a lot of ideas for how Inspired could work. There are definitely ways to do the house without being stereotypical. I hope that they do include them. I agree. Yeah. It's bigger on the inside. That might help. Yeah. Like, I think there are ways to do House Inspired that are not culturally offensive and still create an interesting house that interacts with Amber in a dynamic way, right? Because that's one of the things I look for. Right? If you guys have watched my Houses of the Crucible video, you know one of the things I look for in each house is what is their unique interaction with Amber? What did they do with Amber that other houses either didn't think to do or don't want to do or aren't interested in doing? And how do they sort of chart their own path? And when it comes to charting your own path with the way you interact with Amber, House Inspired actually does have like a very unique approach to Amber. And I like getting to see how that would work mechanically, right? Getting to see how their unique approach to Amber would manifest in game mechanics. Oh no, what am I doing? Sorry, I was trying to fiddle with my settings and I think I made it worse, not better. Because I don't like how much you guys are seeing through my hair. Okay, we'll do that. And then feels like my hair is dancing. Still bad. Oh well. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I do think that we're gonna get. I think we're gonna get whatever the name of that house is gonna be. I honestly don't know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be something new, and I love KeyForge when it does something new. I should just stop fiddling with it. I should just let it be bad. I love KeyForge when it does new things because I think that adds to this discovery, right? It gives us something to experiment with, right? To try out. Which is why I don't feel bad about the Tide. It's why I don't feel bad about Prophecies. It's why I'm optimistic about these new things that we get to toy around with. And I'm hopeful that Draconian Measures will also have really good stuff. I am looking forward to the preview cards. Speaking of preview cards, segue. I actually think we're very, very close to the Prophetic Vision Game Found Disbursement. The last update they gave us was over a month ago now. And it was the one where they were talking about how development was done and production was kicking off. And I think that we're gonna be getting fulfillment pretty soon. I would say probably middle of April, and everybody will have it before the end of March. Maybe Redemption. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Dave, for bringing up the summer event. Dave, I think you are completely correct. I think you're completely correct that the summer event is going to be Sanctum versus Redemption. And I'm not happy about it. Frankly, very frankly, I'm not happy about it. Because it just feels fabricated to me. Which, obviously it is. All stories are fabricated. Like, that's just an innate feature of storytelling. But, like, it just feels like they're forcing a schism between Sanctum and Redemption. And I'm not... You're not happy either. Yeah, I think there's a lot of room to explore the summer event concept. And even though the Martian Civil War was super duper cool, and doing Martian Civil War 2.0 in the form of Redemption versus Sanctum seems like a thing they definitely could do, I kind of hope they don't. And I've talked about this before. I may have even talked about this during my last live stream, because I've had this idea for a minute, but, ooh, that got really blurry. I was a little bummed that they made Redemption an offshoot when the Grey Order and the Red Shroud already existed. Yeah! So it's an evolution of the Order of the Red Shroud, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with it being an evolution of the Order of the Red Shroud. The Grey Order is in a weird place that I want to know more about, because if Sanctum and Redemption are so incredibly schismed that they're about to go to blows and spend an entire summer event crushing one of those houses out that we'll never see it again, then why is the Grey Order on both teams? You know? Would have rather gotten a pro-mutant house that's ideologically pro-mutant. I don't think that was ever likely because of the way Dark Tidings ended. Right? Because at the end of Dark Tidings, the Dark Amber Vault was sealed by the Order of the Red Shroud, and all of the mutants on the Crucible were basically scattered. But Redemption is kind of pro-mutant. They're pro-mutant in the sense that, like, every mutant they encounter is given two choices. Join the Crusade or be purged. And so they have most of the mutants on the Crucible in their number already. So in that way, they're kind of pro-mutant. Exciting, but unfortunately I have to go to bed. Always these dark time zones. Good night, Papersite. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for talking. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will keep going. We'll look forward to hearing from you. I've been really enjoying your stuff you write. Your blog. That's the word. So thank you so much for stopping in. I appreciate it. Have a good night, bud. I do think that the Order of the Grey is confusing to me because they're on both sides of this schism. But so everything we know about the Order of the Grey basically boils down to that they're like Sanctum's secret police, basically, that they're like responsible for enforcing the edicts of the Church of the Opened Eye, which is the name of the organization that House Sanctum's organization is actually called the Church of the Opened Eye. And the Grey Order is basically their Deus Vult, their heresy hunters, but within the Order itself, right? Because like normal Sanctum Knights go out and fight Dis, and they go out and they batter back Martians, and they protect the Bright Havens and whatnot, but the Grey Order is supposed to ferret out heresy within the church itself, at least ostensibly. Like, that's one of their jobs, right? They've got possibly other jobs, very secretive. It's hard to know exactly. So, like, why are they on both sides of this conflict? And if the conflict really is escalating to the point where one's going to get annihilated and the other's going to survive, then really, how can you be on both sides, you know? Feels like you basically have to pick a side at that point. Water is good. I'm talking a lot, so water is good. Yeah, so I don't know what the Great Order's whole thing is in all this, but I'm okay with Redemption as an evolution of the Order of the Red Shroud, right? Because organizations evolve and they change, and that's a thing that happens. And so I like the idea. Maybe a schism between the Greys on what is heresy. That's a thought. I like that a little better. Like, it's just weird to me that both Sanctum and Redemption are more willing to work with House Dis than they are willing to work with each other? What's that about? Like, how is your beef with each other so strong that you'd rather work with literal demons? You know? A group that you both recognize as being just actually evil. It doesn't scan for me. Yeah, that I don't like. Yeah, that just doesn't scan for me. And so even though I'm almost certain the summer event is going to be Sanctum versus Redemption, I don't like it. Oh, Mike, that I don't like. You don't like Dis. Dis being what? Pure evil? Well, they're not technically pure evil, but you can't understand them, and their goals and motivations are disruptive? Ha 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 ha. To everybody else, and so like they feel working with this. Oh, okay, yeah, no, the fact that both houses are more willing to work with this than with each other just does not make sense to me. It doesn't really track. It feels wrong. Feels lore unfriendly. Patent lore unfriendly. Anyway, so what I want them to do for summer events instead, or something they could do going forward, and if you pay any attention to anything I do, this is the thing I really want you to absorb the most. Like if you're scrying out there and you hear anything from my voice, this is the bit I'd like you to take into your brain meats more than anything else. I think you could do a modified KeyForge adventure as the summer event, and it would be a lot of fun. Where Redemption and Sanctum resolve to both fight. Oh, that'd be great. No, that'd be great. No. So I think what you could do is you could Dashy. I think what you could do is you could send out an adventure deck or several copies of an adventure deck if needed as the summer event kit along with whatever else you thought you needed. And players could group up in groups at their LGSs at events for the summer event, bringing their own decks to play. And the thought I heard, maybe. I make a lot of references without realizing it. You could take the adventure deck, and the adventure could have like 3 or 4 different endings, like 3 or 4 different ways that it can end. And then you play the adventure together, and you record which way it ended, and then you use the different endings from different groups to determine the outcome of the event, right? It's the same basic idea as the Martian Civil War. You know, did the elders or the rebels win at your local store, and you just keep track of the number of things. But you could have more than 2 outcomes. I mean, you might just do 2 for the first one, right? If you just want to try it out. But you could have like 3 or even 4 outcomes, and based on what path your players take through the adventure, or what cards pop up, or how they go about it, it could end a couple of different ways, and then you just, put together all of the ways that it ended across all of the stores, across all of KeyForge, and then your summer event is, this big event that we all participated in ended in this canonical way, which has these effects. I think that's totally workable, Just replace the Mars pods with a standardized adventure deck, and just say, okay, now a maximum of 3 people per adventure deck, and you just play it like that, and then maybe you get to keep the adventure deck or something. I don't know. That would be fine. I think that could totally work. But then again, I'm a huge fan of the KeyForge adventures. I think they were a great idea, and I think GG is kind of dropping the ball by letting them slip by. But then again, I've also heard they weren't terribly big sellers, which is sad because, man, I think the KeyForge adventures are one of the more fun ways to play casual KeyForge. At least in my opinion. So that's what, if Gigi's going to take anything away from what's probably going to be about 2 hours of me rambling, the idea that, like, why not have the summer event be an adventure, be a KeyForge adventure or a modified KeyForge adventure, feels like that's totally doable. I feel like that's just not even a problem at all. Okay. What else do you guys want to talk about? Are there any other things, any burning thoughts that you have? We haven't talked about Vault Tours yet. I kind of want to talk about, like, which Vault Tours I'm going to and which ones you guys are going to. And we haven't talked about the Bad Penny Press announced that they're doing a new batch of creator cards. I don't really have much I can say on that at this point, but, if you guys want to talk about some thoughts on that, I'd be open to talking a little bit about that. If let's open it up broader. There's a couple other things that I've been really waiting for, like barely able to make it to locals, let alone Vault Tours. Yeah, makes sense. I totally get it. I managed to carve out what I think is going to be. You're going to Portland? Hey, I'm probably going to Portland. I'm not 100% on Portland yet. I'm 100% on Rochester, but I'm probably going to go to Portland because my mom is on the West Coast, basically, and that Portland's easier than the other ones. Need to rebalance alliance. So, yes. We talked about this earlier, though, but I think deck chaining alliance decks would help a lot with that. And you'd have to put the chains on all of the decks in the alliance, honestly, but they really need... Yeah. So you'd have to put the chains on every deck that makes up the alliance equally, so that you can't just, like, take out the best pod, make a new alliance, and then be like, oh, it's a brand new alliance, it doesn't have any chains. But I think that would, for alliance in particular, be a really good way of sort of tamping down the power a little. But then again, I avoid alliance because I enjoy KeyForge when it's back and forth, when it's kind of a push and pull. And alliance really strongly rewards minimizing interaction. So, ooh, another art book. There's a thought. I would love another art book. I have right on my bookshelf over there, I've got the KeyForge art book, and, like, it's super duper cool. I spend a little less time in the art book than I do the RPG book. I'm more of a lore guy, but the art has so much really cool stuff going on in it that, like, informs a lot of the lore. Oh, okay, one more thing if Gigi's paying attention, which I doubt they are, but if they are, I think they need a member of their team who's responsible for consistency from a universe perspective. Right, for making sure that anytime there's art of a Getrukia, they have the right number and type of arms, right? Or making sure that if a piece of flavor text is attributed to someone, that it actually fits with them. Or, full art anomalies would also be cool. Yes. I think that GG kind of needs somebody to... A lot of exclusive lore bits. There are several cards that have flavor text in the book that didn't have them on cards or different in the book. Oh yeah, absolutely. No. It's a good resource. The short story book is also a good resource. The novel is a good-ish resource. I've definitely gone to the novel a couple times for different things, but... Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's just... I want another art book for sure. But I do think that GG kind of needs somebody who's paying attention to making sure all of the art is consistent, that every house has, like, a consistent feel and theme to their art and to their flavor text and to their presentation. Not necessarily mechanically, but, like, just in the way it's presented. Yeah, Dark Horse did an amazing job with the art book. It looks phenomenal. I'm very, very happy with the art book. I don't go through it as often. My wife's a digital artist, and she says I don't have much of an eye for aesthetics. And that's mostly true. But I do like good theming, you know, and I like things that are like unique and interesting. And I would love an art book, a new one, because yeah, we deserve one. We deserve one. It's time. The Plague Rat had its art cropped for the book. I wonder why. Wonder why they did that. It's always something, right? Always something kind of weird. No matter what you're talking about, there's always something kind of weird. No, we could definitely do with another art book. I want more roleplay setting stuff, which I know there's some licensing issues there, where like the license is owned by a different FFG subsidiary. Hire as a lore expert. I would take the job for sure. You know, with the idea being that you'd work with the development team, but your primary job is making sure all of the artistic representation is consistent, making sure every house has a unique feel and theming. You'd interact with the artist a lot, and also developing the flavor text and developing the character interactions in the background of everything else. And consistency, right? Absolutely. Because like I've been on this rant before, but you know what? We've started down this road, and I blame you guys. You brought me here. In Amber Skies, there's some Getrukia card art that drives me nuts because it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Here's that one, and where's the other one? Bam. Change agent? Those arms are wrong. That's not correct. Even though we can only see 3 of them, one of these 2 should end in a little spoon. And the fact that neither of them does means this is not a correctly represented Getrukia. It isn't. You did it wrong. Moonlight Special, it's a little less obvious, but I think we have the same problem, because you can see this arm is not a big old crab claw. That arm is his normal arm, and then we've got another normal arm. They don't have 3 normal arms. They have a big old crab claw. They have a normal-sized arm. They have a small arm with little fingers, and they've got a dish. You know? I had that on the list of things to address too. Oh, yes. Yeah. They need a consistency consultant of some kind, or team member whose like primary job is putting together a rubric for the designs of all of their creatures and making sure that when the art is submitted in the early stages, it meets those rubrics, and distributing the rubrics to all of the artists and getting flavor text on all the cards. Yeah, usually they're consistent about which side the arms or types are on, but some art gets flipped. Yeah. Normally it's consistent. The description that I saw for Getrukia made it unclear whether the big crab claw is always on their right side with the little counting arm below it, and then the normal arm on the left with the little dish arm below it. Even though that's most of the time how they're depicted, it was unclear to me if that's like always the case, but especially as the game has grown so much at this point. Yeah, no, you need a rubric. You need a guideline that says, okay, if you're making a card and it's going to have a Martian on it, this is the physical characteristics that a Martian has, and thus what every Martian should have, and what their clothing broadly looks like, and what their aesthetic is drawn from, and like who they are as a cultural identity, so that an artist can look at that rubric, look at that guideline, and have a framework for designing the card, and it feels consistent, right? And obviously that person would do other things at Ghost Galaxy 2, because it's a small team, you gotta do many things. But one of the things that's been really frustrating for me, and I'm gonna bop back to the spoilers page, is just how few of the new cards have flavor text. Like, I get that it's not a priority in design, but it makes the world feel much more fleshed out, and it makes the character interactions much more interesting. And like, pop quiz, how many fingers do Martian grunts have? I'm pretty sure the grunts, I want to say 3. I want to say the grunts have 3 fingers, but now I have to look because I didn't know off the top of my head, and I feel shame in my heart. Let's pull up a grunt. Actually, let's pull up an older grunt so that I know. Oh, all of the above. That's, well, nope. I don't like that. Yeah, see, here's a Martian elder, and he's got 3 fingers, and I thought the grunts and the elders both had 3. Let me see if I can find a good grunt. Here's a grunt, and this is all Coda, and he's 3 fingers. Like, and this is all Coda though. Like, this is, you know, the oldest stuff. When I think they might have actually had somebody. He's 3 fingers on this hand. Elders seem to be consistent from what I could see. Okay, so at least the elders always have 3. I thought it was 3 most of the time. Let me look at the newer stuff, because the newer stuff is where they make more mistakes in that kind of thing. Let's look at Cobalt Capulet. I don't know if I can see his fingers very well. That looks like 3. Yeah, 3 on all of those guys. Watney's calculation, that's got a pretty good look at a... That's either 3 or 4? It's a little hard to tell. That one might be 4. I think there are 1 or 2 that have 10 fingers like humans. Wrong! Incorrect! Negative! Get out of here with that. Ugh! Let me look at Senwick's. He might be 3 fingers. It's a little hard to tell. If he does, they're kind of using him a little funny. Let's look at Ixrenu. Yeah, okay, he's 4. That's not right. That shouldn't be. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that GG's doing a bad job. The art is actually very interesting, and it's very cool to look at. Like, it's visually interesting, but, like, a little bit of fidelity, right? A little bit of consistency, a little bit of guidelining to make sure that everything stays consistent across multiple artists and across multiple sets and across multiple cards can go a long way towards making a world feel real, you know? Better percentage than Star Wars Unlimited. Is the Star Wars Unlimited art bad? I haven't played Star Wars Unlimited. Is their art just not good? I think Bardos is 4 fingers. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that about the Martians. Now that's going to bother me. Ketzer, why? Why would you do that? Now I've got another thing that's going to bother me about the art fidelity in KeyForge. Ugh. Some of it's great, some of it is terrible. Well, that's awful. You don't want that. You want it all to be good, like, right? That's what we want. That's what we're after. We're after a game that looks good and is fun to play. But yeah, like, I think just a little bit of rubricing, a little bit of telling people, giving them guidelines ahead of time could go a very long way and could make interacting with the game a more consistent experience. And while they have put out some decent flavor text, actually even some really good flavor text in the last couple of sets, there have been a lot fewer quotes in the flavor text. And so we've been getting less flavor for... So there's a series I want to do, and that I'm going to do at some point, called Lore Masters of the Crucible, is the current working title. And the idea is that these are characters who are very involved in what's happening in the world of KeyForge, and they're very involved in the local group, and they get lots of attributions in card text and things like that. People like Dr. Escatera, people like Val Jericho, character Inca the Spider, characters that just we've heard from a lot, right? Dodger, that we've heard from a lot and that have said a lot of things. But there's been a lot less of that lately. And the newer characters and the newer cards, yeah, Inca and Dodger, yeah, absolutely. Gotta point out how many cards feature Taliga in their art. Yeah, Taliga is in at least a few? Oh, gosh. Ketzer, why are you running me round? Let's see. Snag's Mirror has Taliga in it, really? Oh, that might be right. Snags... Yeesh. Oh, let's just put Snag. Snag's Mirror. Is that Taliga? That might be Taliga. Hold on, let me pull up Taliga. Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely Taliga. But she doesn't get any quotes. Why not? If we're using her in multiple card arts, why... What's her story? Tell me. Or give me more hints at the very least. Ugh. Oh, I knew she was in Song of Spring. That one I did know. Yes, because as soon as I looked at her, I was like, oh yeah, that's the Song of Spring person. And like, that's another thing, right? Is the number of cards that reference other cards in their card art has also seemingly dropped off in the more recent sets. And so having somebody who can say, hey, this isn't... there we go. Having somebody who can say, hey, yeah, this card is an opportunity to reference an older card. Why don't we put something in the art or the background that references something from an older card, or that crafts a story or a narrative around this character as an active and living and breathing and moving part of this world, you know? That's awesome. Like, I don't think I would do it for free because it's a lot of work, honestly. Like, if you're really gonna do it right, you know, if you're really gonna do it right, it's a lot of work. Because you gotta put together all these rubrics, and you gotta put together color guides, and you gotta put together style guides, and I'm sure they have some of this, or at least I hope they do, because I feel like FFG probably had some of that. Oh, I didn't switch over when I was looking at card arts. Oh no! I'm trying to be better about that. I'm trying to switch back and forth. The job is much more valuable than $0. I would say so, right? And like, maybe it doesn't need to be a full team member. Maybe a consultant is enough, right? Maybe a part-time consultant is all it would take, but there are art guides for the first 9 houses. I would assume so. I don't think I've seen them. Or I don't think I've like personally encountered them, but I feel like there have to be, right? And we've got 3 new houses since then. No, first 9. No, we've got 5 new houses since then. Yeah, we need art and style guides to be a consistent part of what we do in this game. And I think that, you know, if you did have a full-time team member, if they weren't just a consultant, they could probably also fill out the flavor text and the lore. You've seen parts of them in the art books. They're where a lot of the dis symbols came from. Oh. Okay, yeah. I am not a skilled artist. That is a big area where I'm not particularly strong, right? I'm not good at art myself. I'm good at describing things. I'm good at getting really involved in those descriptions. I can write out those descriptions in a way that other people can understand. And if I was partnered with an artist, even of just relatively moderate skill, I could probably design symbols and design motifs and design things like that pretty easily. Yeah, that's the other thing, is you got to remember that they lost a whole bunch of data during the ransomware attack, and so like maybe they don't even have that anymore, which would be a darn shame, because like style guides are just really important. They matter. They're a big deal. At least I think they're a big deal, right? So I would hope that when they are in a position where they feel like they can add another team member, that would be a high priority, because I do feel like it's an area of opportunity for them right now, right? It's an area where they're not horrible, but there's room for improvement. And I feel like even just one person who's dedicated to keeping up with that could go a really long way. And could make the art fidelity and the lore fidelity and the look and feel of KeyForge more consistent, make each house feel more unique, more alive, more vibrant, just by making sure that there is a guide for these things and reviewing the art before it's finalized and working with the flavor text and working with the artists to kind of add a narrative through line in the background. Also, that same person could probably write lore blurbs, because I need more lore blurbs. I need more italicized lore blurb text that talks about all of the crazy awesome things happening on the Crucible from the perspective of people on the Crucible. I need it. I need it. Oh, I need it. And like, I don't consider myself like an incredible writer in terms of like narrative capability, but like, I'm not bad at it either. I'd submit a short story or something and see if they like it, but if that was part of the process or something, but like, there's a lot of opportunities for creative storytelling in KeyForge, and I think right now we're underselling those opportunities and also just making errors that could easily be fixed. This is not difficult to fix, right? I've worked with commissioned artists before, and if you tell a commissioned artist, hey, the sketch you sent in doesn't meet the style guide, you need to fix this, this, and this, that's not ever been a problem in my experience. No commissioned artist I've ever worked with has been like, oh, well, you can't change the number of fingers on that hand, it would ruin the whole piece. No, they're very accommodating, especially if you provide them with a style guide, especially. Need to start a group for creating and cataloging fan stories and art. I don't hate that. I'm not very good at art myself, but I could definitely write some stories in this universe that I think would be really fun and interesting. And like, so I'm a dungeon master by trade, right? And so I like telling stories in bits and pieces and letting it get filled in by the people who are collecting those bits and pieces, right? I'm really good with breadcrumbs, right? I might not be able to like write a novel of the story, but I can like seed ideas and place characters in situations that leave the impression of something really interesting happening. Which I think is probably more what you need, at least consistently. Although I wish KeyForge did have another short story compilation. I don't know if I want another novel, but I would love another short story compilation, because I think that could be very, 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 very good. No, I do think that would be a great idea, Ketzer, to put together fan art and fan stories from the KeyForge community, right? Because like, we've all talked about this before, and it's a real truth of KeyForge. KeyForge has an incredible community. It has such a powerful and potent and engaged and interested community. Need more short stories, even media. Oh yeah, absolutely. This world is rife for that kind of thing. Like, I would love more short stories that are just little tiny glimpses into a little tiny corner of a little bitty piece of a little bitty area of this enormous world, you know? Yeah, you can write anything. You can write anything and it'll fit. You just got to find the place to put it, right? You just got to find the place where it fits, and you can make it fit, and it'll be great. You can write in any genre. You can write, in any story you want to tell. It's a great setting for it, and I really do wish they would open up the setting a little bit. Maybe not to full novels. Maybe that's, I don't know. The novel was interesting, but I liked the short stories a lot better. The short stories were really, really great, and I think you could definitely do some very engaging storytelling on the Crucible in a short story format if you opened it up and let people do that. But I know that they have some IP issues, because I know that at least for like the roleplay setting, they have to share the rights for that, at least right now. So I don't know if that's a thing they can do eminently. You know what I mean? Maybe there's issues, hurdles to be overcome, hoops to jump through. Much hoop jumping to do. Perhaps. Or perhaps not. Whoop, there it is. Got all foggy there for a second. Yeah. Other things. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? So the two vault tours I'm probably going to are Rochester and Portland. And then other than Rochester and Portland, I'm definitely going to KFC again. Not going to miss it. It's going to happen. That was the only other thing that was like on my I want to definitely talk about this list. I've got some things coming in the future. If you guys want like a sneak or sneak preview, or not even really a preview, it'd just be like me telling you what I'm working on. And that would be fine. Or if you have other things you want to talk about, if Ketzer wants to make my brain hurt with more art stuff that I hadn't noticed yet. Like, I dig through the card arts a lot, but I always do it with like a specific thing I'm looking for, you know, with like a specific goal in mind. Because I feel like if I don't, I'll just go down a rabbit hole. Like a while ago, I went through Unfathomable's card arts, and I was looking for all of the creatures in Unfathomable that have amber in their bodies, like embedded into their bodies. And it's a lot of them. It's like half or more that just like have amber embedded in them. Because apparently that's the thing that can just happen. Amber can just grow from plants and creatures. And be harvested from those plants and creatures, which is wild. Because amber is just wild. It can be anything, do anything, come anywhere, look like anything, come in any shape. Which is super, super, duper cool. But yeah. I'm a career artist. It's just part of my compulsive behavior. Yeah, well, that's totally fair. I'm apparently a career storyteller. And so, you know, I look for the stories and the through lines, or at least I try to, right? And I have found, as I've gotten older, that I really like new and interesting worlds. And I like new and interesting settings. And I like ideas that feel fresh and original. And I just feel really, really sad when those ideas and worlds are being neglected, or at least from my perspective are being neglected, you know? I have watched several universes that I really liked fall apart because the people managing the IP that universe was in did not care about that they had something unique and interesting. And one of the goals I had when I started this YouTube channel, one of the like, you know, big goals I had is I knew GG was a small team, and I knew that they didn't have all the time and effort in the world to put into everything. And I did not want the lore of this game to fall by the wayside, because the lore in this world is super duper cool. I love the Crucible. I love the local group. I love Hub City. I love all of the houses. So much unique and interesting flavor. And there could be anything on this world. There could be anything on this world. And that's incredible. The concept of Amber as the ultimate MacGuffin, like, I could go on and on and on and on about all the things that I think are really cool about this world. But one thing I did recognize right away is that a smaller team is going to have a harder time caring or keeping in mind, maybe not caring, but keeping in mind and prioritizing the world alongside the game. Because the game is great, and it's so much fun, and I really enjoy it. But for me, what's special about KeyForge for me is how great this world is, and how much room there is to explore, and how many cool and interesting things are possible in a place like the Crucible, in a place like the local group, and just how much more there is left to discover, and how much more space we have to make those discoveries. And I did not want Ghost Galaxy. I wanted Ghost Galaxy to hear a voice that I wanted the community as well to hear a voice that said, I care about that. That's important to me. It matters to me that this world is unique, and this world is interesting, and this world is full of engaging stories, you know? That's why we need to rally the fans to expand the world. It's okay if things are inconsistent too. Multiversality theory is a lot in the public consciousness these days. Unique world building is incredible in this game. It's a big part of what I like about KeyForge. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is a huge part of what I like about KeyForge. And you know, there's so much we could be doing to keep this world interesting, and I don't want that to fall by the wayside. I don't want that to fall by the wayside in the shuffle of putting out 2 sets a year. I don't want that to fall by the wayside of all of this playtesting we need to do and all of the new mechanics we need to try out and all the anomaly cards we have to print and, oh my god, we have to make the set smaller because we ran out of time. And in the shuffle and fluffle of all the rest of that, I want this world to stay important. And I want it to be something we're all paying attention to, that we're all looking at, and that we're all asking Ghost Galaxy to pay attention to and to look at, asking them to care about, and asking them to be invested in, right? Because at the end of the day, they only hear the things we say. And we have to say them loud enough that they can hear them, you know? And so I wanted to push my voice out. And I know I'm not the most competitive KeyForge player, and I don't spend all of my time on TCO trying out new deck ideas. But I do spend a lot of time with the card gallery. I spend a lot of time with the roleplay setting. I spend a lot of time with the art book and the short stories. And, you know, I have things about this game that I care about and that I want to be important and to stay important and to be part of the conversation. Even when things get difficult, even when crunch time happens, even when you know, we're running into other wrinkles. I want part of the conversation to still be, are we maintaining our universe? Are we putting effort into caring about this world and this story and the narrative that we've established and the world that we have been living in? And in some ways, I feel like that's not been as good lately. Grim Reminders had a very unique and interesting story to tell, but Amber Skies kind of didn't. Like, it's a fun set from a sealed perspective, but from a lore perspective, Amber Skies is kind of lackluster. It doesn't really have a unique mechanic. I mean, it has house enhancements, but only barely. Like, there's just not that many of them, and there's a huge chunk of the deck pool that doesn't even use the mechanic. And, like, the Sky Beasts are there, but they don't feel dynamic. They feel just kind of added on. Sky Ships are the same way. They're not even Sky Ships anymore. They're just ships. You know, from a lore perspective, I feel like Amber Skies really kind of fell apart. And I think part of that is because it wasn't something that was considered important enough to hold on to even when things got difficult. And I want it to be. And I think Prophetic Visions, hopefully, will not be that way. I have a really strong feeling Draconian Measures won't be that way. I am looking forward to the summer event. I'm looking forward to all of the vault tours. I'm looking forward to everything that Ghost Galaxy has to offer in the future. I just hope that in the shuffle and slide of everything, we can keep this world unique, interesting, and exciting. A place to play interesting games in. You know, one of my videos that people have commented to me personally about the most is the one where I talk about vaults and keys and what it takes to forge a key and what it takes to open a vault and what that process actually is, and how every single time you play a game of KeyForge, you are asking the 36 cards in your deck to perform a truly Herculean task. You are asking Sisyphus to roll his rock to the top of the hill. Did I get that right, Sisyphus? You are asking Atlas to hold the world upon his shoulders. You are asking the world of this 36 card deck, and in a way, for me, it enhances the game to have an appreciation of what it is that is actually happening every time I play a game of KeyForge, at least from the perspective of my deck and my opponent's deck, you know? And that's a big deal. It enhances a lot for me. So, all right, guys, if you've got anything else you want to talk about, now's your chance. We're winding it down. I think we're probably going to call it here pretty soon. So if there's anything else on your minds, anything else you want to talk about, you want to get me lore dumping on a subject, you want me to talk about something or talk with you about something, last chance. And then we'll go into wrap up mode, and we'll start kind of wrapping everything up, because I think a 2-hour stream's a pretty good stream. I think we covered all the things I wanted to cover, but as always, you guys are as much a part of this conversation as I am, if not more. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on if there's anything else you want to cover. I'll think of it as soon as the stream ends, right? Isn't that just the way? It'll be for later offline. Fair enough. Totally fair. Well, in that case, I'm going to go into wrap-up mode. Thank you guys so much for coming to the Hangout stream. I'll probably try to do another one eventually. Eventually. I wanted to aim to do these quarterly, but my computer kind of didn't work for a while there, and problems and issues, and you know, life happens. I have some more content coming. Be excited. I'm going to try to pump it out at a regular interval. Right now I'm waiting on stuff. There are things that I want that I don't have yet that I really want to have before I can put out more content, but yeah, look forward to the next stream. 3 to 6 months, maybe, probably, possibly. Who knows? We'll see. Oh, also, when I get my Prophetic Visions Game Found stuff, when that all comes in, I'm going to do a box opening, absolutely. So look forward to that. I think we're probably, a month or more away from that, but that's the next big thing to be excited about. We'll get to look at my name decks, and we'll get to look at the Draconian Measures preview cards, and we'll probably even open a deck or two, or maybe play a game. Last time I got Amber Meaties to come over, who knows? Maybe I can get him to do that again. Even if I can't, we'll definitely find some time to talk again in the future, because I've got things cooking, and I'm so happy you guys came out for this. This is really fun to get to talk with my community and talk with you guys about all the things that are happening in KeyForge and all the things that are coming in the future, and my thoughts on what is going on and what could go on and what we could do in this game. But that's all I have for you today. So until next time, later, Archons.